Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pop Culture SquadCast. We are live. Mike is not with us tonight, but this is going to be our last SquadCast of the year, and we want to thank everybody for being here all year. This is like our 25th. I don't have the number in front of me, but it's been a lot. We really kicked this off this year, went live, bit the bullet, and Mike and I have had a great time. Mike's going to be back next year. We have a big slate that's already building up with some great people. We have some more cool things to do. Don't forget, in January we are going to have the Colorist Appreciation Night at the end of January, so we will be live for that. We want to thank and welcome Ed Catto, who's joining us tonight to talk about the year of 2023.
How you doing, Ed? Ho! Good to be here, Bob. Thanks for having me, man.
Oh yeah, we are super happy to have you. And you have already gotten a hello from Sherry.
Hello. See, the women love me. Oh my gracious.
That's right. That is 100% correct. All right, so everybody, bring your eggnog. This is the time of the year. I have my my seasonally appropriate beverage in my nerdy appropriate mug or tumbler here. So everybody,
I got a Batman glass here.
Excellent, Ed. We are this is our last show of the year. We want to talk about the year. We want to get everybody involved. We want go ahead, folks, and join into the comments. Let us know what you thought of the year as we go through. It was quite an experience. I did some inventory this year or recently, and
you mean mental inventory or cataloging your stats?
I'm cataloging. So like I attended in person 8 conventions. One of the highlights being Ithacon.
Yeah.
While I was at those conventions, I hosted 15 panels and was a guest on 2, which surprised the heck out of me. Not the hosting, it's the guesting, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that this number is right, but I somewhere in the counting, I did 39 SquadCasts, whether they were live or off, or special events or just audio recorded podcasts. Pop Culture Squad has posted roughly somewhere over 180 posts this year. Which between you and Mike and me and Mark, all of us, everybody kicking in, we've done a good job. I think we're gonna, I like keeping track of it so we can
it's move on
next year.
Yeah. Is that applause now or do you?
No.
I think that's
no applause. It was positive, right? We move forward.
Yeah.
We try and get better.
That's the idea, absolutely. And sometimes you look back and you're like, holy smokes, how did I fit all that stuff in? Or it would seem like daunting if you were sitting on the precipice of January looking down, but somehow it all happens, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna wind down for the year. But I want to take a second before we get into talking back what else we went through in this year, and just kind of think about the time of the year we are in, and how lucky we are to be doing this. To be talking about these nerdy things, to be having the stupid arguments that we have, to be worried about things that are just so insignificant in the grand scheme of humanity. And there's a lot of people who can't do that, and we want to take a minute to just kind of remember, that this is all fun, and it's not the end of the world. It's comics.
Yeah, that's a good attitude to have, and sometimes we lose track of it, and
I mean, you're dealing with it. You're dealing with reality every day on campus. The semester is almost over for you, right?
Yeah, just about had last finals today and grading and all that stuff now, but I mean, I had some students with real big problems, and some Jewish students really concerned about the world, and some Palestinian one Palestinian fella who's very worried about the world, and and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to the comic store later on today. So yeah, I mean, there's
Sure.
real things are tough, and tough for everybody. Sometimes we can see the problems, and sometimes people keep it hidden, behind a smile, and you never know the struggles they're going through.
Exactly. I'm just making sure we're going to bring in some other guests. We do have other people coming tonight. We got to kind of juggle this
Oh,
green
yeah.
room that we got. So I'm just making sure that we get one of the people the link to come in.
Oh, I was so proud of myself. I thought I made you cry, and I
Oh,
guess I didn't
well,
work hard enough. Next year, next year.
that's not true. You let me tell you, I thank you for being here. I thank you for doing that. And with just something that we all need to think about, we all need to be thankful for, because there's tons of news in the comic business. There's tons of being stupid about stuff. We got to let that just be noise and move forward.
Oh yeah, and it's even hard. A guy said some mean stuff about a project I'm involved with, and
Really.
on social media, and it stuck with me way longer than it should. It's just
Well,
like, oh, grr, and you're thinking about it, and then in the grand scheme of things, like, who cares? It's all fine. It's all a gift. It's all just a gift to be able to enjoy this stuff.
um we've spent too much time talking about it already. I don't want to spend any more time giving it any air. I do want to take one more minute before we get into talking about some of the things and running down some of the interesting things of the year. I want to take 1 minute to remember who we have and who we've lost, and think about some of the people that in the comics industry that mean a lot to us, who we've lost this year. So everybody take just a kind of a minute of silence here.
Mm.
Yeah, it was tough. There's a lot of people we lost. We want to remember them, and hope that list is a lot shorter next year.
Yeah, yeah. And
Some great
celebrate the
people.
great things that, those folks did in their lives,
Sure,
and their creativity
sure.
they shared. I mean, that's all great.
So let's talk just quick. Give you a sec here. One of the biggest things you do every year is Ithacon, teaching the class and helping the kids at Ithaca College, create that event. How was this year's recap? And like, when you get back from it, and we haven't had you on since that happened, you have a minute to think,
Wow.
how do you feel about it, and what do you got going for next year?
Oh yeah. Well, it's a great thing, as we get, very thoughtful about it, and the gifts that, the opportunities that we get. So I was a little kid, and the first comic convention I went to was Ithacon, and I do believe it was Ithacon number 2. And
That's
Walter
crazy.
Simonson was there, and Al Milgrom, and they were making jokes how they look like brothers because they had beards, and
I
that
did
was,
not know Al Milgrom had a beard.
yeah, back then. And it was so cool, and I was just at the point where I kind of knew creators a little. Like, I had all my mythology for Marvel characters and DC, but like, oh, who's doing this and who's doing that, and that was great. So to be able to, for a job to help manage this Ithacon, this, second longest running comic convention in the U.S., is so much fun, and we had a fantastic show. we build this, as you know, Bob, we build this around this class. And there's a good Ithacon fan chirping in. We build it around this class where students learn how to promote and manage a trade show, specifically Ithacon. And we have like 50% super, focused fans, and about the other half are like, I don't know anything about, pop culture, but I want to learn how to run these things. And together, they came together this year and just put on a great show. And we had a lot of fun and did some great things. And, we're in the throes, behind as usual, for planning for Ithacon for 2024, the last weekend of April. We're up against C2E2, which is kind of a drag, but that's okay. This show purposefully stays very small, and so the lines are short. The ability to interact with creatives is very high ability to do that, and we're very, very excited and starting to get it going again.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I want to. We have a new guest coming in, and I'm not going to do the whole normal video thing, and I apologize for that. But I want to bring in our guest, Tom Zoller, America's Tom Zoller, has joined the chat.
Hey,
yay!
Thomas, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You have your eggnog, because it is eggnog time.
Oh,
excellent.
yeah.
That is the darkest eggnog I've ever seen.
When you write wine,
are you drinking out of the X-Men glass, Bob?
I am drinking out of an X-Men glass. It is an Art Adams X-Men glass from Terrificon this year.
Very nice.
Very nice.
So yes, Thomas, how was your year?
Oh, it was okay. There was lots of tumult, and I didn't get as much stuff done as I wanted, but I got to do a lot of awesome stuff. So yeah, on the whole, it was a pretty good year.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and you're the type of guy who always does it with a smile too, Tom, right?
Carefully cultivated illusion, yes. Hello.
Yeah, the funny part is, let me tell you something. You see the smile. Sometimes I don't see the smile. Sometimes I get the unfiltered Tom.
Oh yeah, I've only seen the smile. Even
in my head, it's a lot like when Malcolm Reynolds is on the planet saying, "You don't know what I'm capable of."
Yeah. What do you have? What do you got going on? Is there anything you can talk to us about that we're gonna see in the coming year?
Man, I don't know. Cupid's Arrows 2, Volume 2 will be done. I've roughed out the last 7 pages for that, so that'll be set. Doing a thing for Storm King, but that's 2025 at this point.
Well, hopefully we'll hear about it next year.
Yes. Lots of conventions. Man, I think that actually is all I can talk about.
All right.
How many conventions do you end up doing each year?
All of them.
So
I try to cut down every year, and I do about 16 a year, I think.
Holy
there's some regular ones that I do every year, like C2E2 in Baltimore and San Diego, and I just put in my hotel information for that, which is always a certain level of stress, because now I get to wait 3 months to see what hotel I get. But also because I'm fortunate enough to work on the My Little Pony comics. Like this year, I got to go to Germany for a couple of weeks. Germany and Vienna and Switzerland. I made a trip out of it. And
that's good.
Yeah, it was amazing. Oh, such a good trip.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
Well, so what was that like? What was it like going to another country and finding people who are consuming American media and want to talk to you about it? And do they speak to you in English? Like, how does that work?
Do.
Like,
yes. I've done
I applaud them, and I think we're a bunch of ridiculous people, because I don't think we could do that.
Part of me agrees with you, and then part of me does the math that like English is everybody's second language. So if I learned German, I wouldn't I'd be able to do a smaller area. Like if you learn English, you can talk in so many other places. I mean, I wish I could speak a foreign language better, aside from Klingon, which I can't actually speak because I'm not that level of geek. But yeah, there everybody spoke in English. I did a convention in Monterrey, Mexico, a few years ago, and they gave me a handler at that point, someone to translate for me. But yeah, and it was just it was amazing. Like I feel that the overseas shows don't get as many of the American creators over there, so it's always a bigger deal when you're over there. And they make you feel incredibly welcome. Galacon was the show that brought me out, and it was just, man, it was just perfect.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I went to an awesome comic book store in Berlin one time. I couldn't believe what a great shop it was.
I didn't make it to Berlin. I was in Munich, but I got to be there over Oktoberfest.
Oh,
that's awesome.
It was just fantastic.
The closest I got was I interviewed two people who were overseas at the time this year. They were all in England, so I don't know if that counts. But I did have the amazing one interview that I was in Chicago, and one of the guests on the interview was in Los Angeles, and the other one was in England at the same time. So that was like a trans world interview. Let's start talking about the world we live in, the comic books and movies and nerddom. Let's talk about some movies that came out this year. You guys have a favorite movie that you saw?
I know there's a second one, but I just saw 2 weeks ago, and I don't know if it's out this year. I saw American Fiction.
I think that is out this year, but that's a streaming movie? Yes.
No, it's in theaters. It's what's his name who played Jim Gordon in the
right?
Batman?
It's Jeffrey Wright, but I don't know that it's out yet. Right? You saw a preview, an early thing. I think it's coming out.
Yeah, because I think it's coming out this year. I think it's like a Christmas release, maybe.
It's like trying to get in under the Oscar window. So what do you think of it?
I thought it was fantastic. It was so many things I wanted to see. It was like, it's goofy, but it was a movie about adults being adults. And there aren't a lot of those. As much as I like superhero movies, I feel like the pandemic kind of broke the habit of going to movies to go to see movies. So they're all kind of events now. And a friend of mine has been part of the AMC, like the secret cinema thing that they do. That's how I got to see that, and I saw Boys in the Boat, the new George Clooney film.
Oh yeah.
How was that?
It was really this is going to sound like damning with faint praise, and I don't like. I super enjoyed the movie. It's very breezy. It reminds me a lot of his Leatherheads film.
Okay.
The one that he did with John Krasinski. Like, it's good, but American Fiction was fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like that's a bad part since the pandemic. Like, boy, I can remember certain stints in my life, we'd go to the movies every week, like on a Sunday night or something. And now I feel like I just get out there for the big movies. And that's kind of a shame.
Yeah, and there's so much stuff that it feels like the big movies are on TV in a way that they weren't before.
Yeah,
You have shows that
a lot sooner.
Yeah. Well, and just like the level of storytelling, like when I was at Hubert, we went every weekend because that's all there was to do. But you still had Wise Guy. Excuse me? Sorry,
there's nothing to do in that town other than to go to
There's nothing to do with that town. That's how I learned how to draw. I was not distracted. But you'd have Wise Guy or Star Trek: The Next Generation or something like that. But most of the TV was pretty facile. Like, there was a big difference between movie entertainment and TV entertainment. And now, you watch something like For All Mankind or, Yellowstone. It has the same heft as a movie.
Yeah, I agree. It was a big, we're going to stay on movies for a minute, but it was a big year in TV. Absolutely. We're going to get to that. Yeah. Do you guys know what the biggest, we're talking domestic box office here, the biggest movie of the year is?
Trolls?
I saw Trolls.
Okay.
I did. I saw it with my
feel like
friend.
it was gonna be
a lot
like
of
that.
movies have gotten a lot of shit this year, and they did way better than Trolls.
I'm not giving them grief. I just know that I feel that that certain level of kids movie is one of those universal things in a way that everything else is so fragmented now.
So the movie that was the kids movie that did that was Little Mermaid. They were the sixth biggest.
Oh, really?
Movie.
Oh,
The live action one?
The live action one. Number one movie of the year was Barbie.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
sure.
The number two one. This one surprised me. Super Mario Brothers.
Oh,
The
really?
number two box office movie, made $500 million at the U.S. box office.
Wow. Holy smokes.
And then number three was Across the Spider-Verse. Have you guys seen that one?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't see this one. Then
This one, it is
Hey,
good.
man.
I saw it recently. Yeah, I saw it at home. I didn't see it in the theater, but it was good. It was a great cinema. It was a great experience. It's a great film.
yeah, I really
Um,
want to see that on the big screen.
Yeah. Did you know? I don't know how far we want to get into spoilers.
Right.
Did
So,
you know
like,
about
listen,
the ending thing?
there's a second one coming. So we
Right.
all know that there's more. I didn't know that that movie would have. I knew ahead of time that movie was going to end in a place where there would be a second movie. Like that
Oh,
Right.
first weekend going in, which was a crazy thing, right? That first weekend going in, nobody knew
Mhm.
that this is part one.
Oh, yeah. I know that. Haven't seen it.
Yeah. And
So
it,
how was your experience with that?
I didn't know I knew there'd do a sequel, but I didn't know it was continued.
Right.
And I really enjoyed that experience. It was funny. The buddy I saw it with, it's like, oh, I wish I would have known it was continued. I'm like, yeah, but when I saw Empire Strikes Back, I didn't know it was continued. Like I kind of miss not. It was nice not knowing everything about a film before I went in.
Yeah. So
It was
no-
very much. That's very much it. Like that's a great analogy because Empire Strikes Back. You think back of it, like it ended, and you're like, well, this isn't over.
Mhm.
Yeah. I can remember with that, or maybe other people. You're like, how are they going to wrap this all up? Like, wait, how long? How much longer are we in here for?
Yeah.
They got a lot to do.
It was a different experience knowing that, because while I was watching, I'm like, all right, it's going to end now. This is a good spot for a cliffhanger to be, and it kept going. I'm like, where's it going to end?
Another picture that happened with like enormous level of interest, but I feel like nobody talked about it afterwards, was the latest Mission Impossible movie. I don't know if you guys saw that one.
Oh, I saw that. I totally saw that.
Yeah. And at the end, like, oh, now you got to go get the bad guy.
Yeah. I love Mission Impossible so much. It is my favorite franchise right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you like the show as a kid, two-time, or just?
I didn't want. It was off the air by the time I was growing up, so I was always aware of it, but it wasn't until, really, I think it found its footing with the Brad Bird film,
Which
Ghost
one?
Protocol.
The third or fourth?
Fourth.
Yeah.
That's the one where he's running along on the outside of the building.
Yeah.
And for my money, they have never matched the fifth film, which is Rogue Nation. That's one where he's hanging on the outside of the plane.
Yeah.
The sixth one's good. The seventh one is good. But tonally, they bounce around a little bit more than the fifth one. Which when I was in Vienna, I went to the Opera House because that's where Tom Cruise went.
Oh, there you go. Well, the nice part about that series, as opposed to like the Bond franchise, is each director gets his chance to do their thing. You can kind of stretch it and pull it as you see fit.
I heard at one point that was Tom Cruise's idea. He wanted a different director in each one.
Yeah.
But I think he's kind of bonded with Christopher McQuarrie, because McQuarrie worked on him in Top Gun and Edge of Tomorrow, and did script rewrites on Ghost Protocol. And he's directed the last 3, and he's going to do the next one. So I feel like they know each other's rhythms really well. Supposedly, their conversation about the latest one went Tom Cruise saying, "I want to ride my bike off a mountain," and then Christopher McQuarrie says, "I want to crash a train," and then they wrote a movie around it.
Holy smokes! Yeah,
And
amazing.
and it was a good movie.
A
It
lot
was
of fun.
good. Yeah.
I love that female lead. I'm in love with that woman.
Haley Atwell.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did a really good. She did a really good job. She blends with them well. I feel that Mission Impossible is also one of those films where nobody I love Tom Cruise in the role. I think he's really found his voice with it, but you don't need him. Like, he could eventually get promoted or get killed. Like, Mission Impossible is such a great concept that you could bring in different actors and rotate them in and out, and it's still Mission Impossible.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess and that's exactly what happened in the old days. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's
So
I don't think I found anybody who saw that picture, Thomas.
Oh yeah, it got dwarfed by the shadow of Oppenheimer and Barbie.
Yeah.
well, it was the 13th biggest domestic box office picture of the year.
Okay.
They made 172 million and did better than Transformers, Creed, and the Hunger Games prequel.
Wow.
Did better than Flash.
Well, Flash is a damaged film, so
Sure.
Poor Flash.
And I was looking at like the comic book superhero movies, and I want to say superhero movies because I don't know well, there have been other comic book movies that are not superheroes, but there was a bunch of them this year. There was, Ant-Man was this year. There was Shazam, which did terrible. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was this year.
really good. Yeah.
We already mentioned Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. There was The Flash, then there was Blue Beetle, which I enjoyed. And I think of the Marvels and Blue Beetle kind of in the same vein. They are that more not super blockbuster, the world is going to end more of they're much more smaller in scope.
Yeah. Of
And
the two, I only saw the Marvels.
I saw the two of them. I like them
Yeah.
both. They're similar. They're not the same. I don't want to conflate them, but they were fine. They were superhero movies that 20 years ago we would have been like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe we got those."
Right.
And at the same time they were both, kind of like, "Oh, well, they're not Endgame." And Endgame is
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the Blue Beetle I can't speak to because I haven't seen it. I think Marvel's had a particular set of problems that it had a lot of trouble overcoming.
Sure.
Yeah. I think if that version of Captain Marvel had been in the first film, people would have lined up to see the Marvels.
Right.
But Carol is not as personal and engaging in the first one, and in Endgame, she's a plot device. Like, I know what Tony Stark would order for breakfast. I don't know if Captain Marvel has breakfast. Like, I don't know that character. It's not as well defined, and it was harder to get excited for it. Like, I wasn't planning on seeing it, but a friend of mine said, "Hey, let's go." And I'm like, "Oh, I like movies, so let's go."
Yeah. It seemed like it was easy for all the haters to line up behind that too and use any perceived stumble as an excuse for their hate.
Yeah, I will say I find that it goes both ways. Like, the people who want it to fail will take every failing and make it big, and the people who want to protect it will take any criticism and make it invalid.
Yeah.
So it's why I don't talk about this stuff on Twitter, because it's too nuanced to talk about.
Oh yeah. Hey, I read this book.
Okay.
And it just had it. And a friend said, "Oh, you got it." I said, "Oh, I'll wait." And said, "No, you got to read it now and get all the stuff." Like a ton of good how the movies were made and all the behind the scenes stories. I just loved.
And what's the name of that?
Yeah, it's just called MCU by three authors: Joanna Robinson, David Gonzalez, and Gavin Edwards, and they take like each kind of chunk of the MCU and they talk about all the things that were going on at that time to get it made. And a lot of the stories you've heard, if you keep up or if you read, Variety or Bleeding Cool or something, you kind of know some of the stuff. But like one of the things they talked about was at one point there was a Daniel Craig Thor project that was getting close to being made. I was like, that sounds weird, right? Unfathomable by today's standards. But
Sure.
But yeah, it was a good book.
I mean, there's still one movie left, one superhero movie left in Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom, which comes out on Christmas Day, which will be the end of the pre-James Gunn DC movies. And one of the things that we got in 2023 was a plan. We got James Gunn heading the DC movies, and we got a plan.
Well, we've had plans before.
Yeah, I know that. we didn't have one. There was a long time where we're like, there was no more Snyder because that was a plan, and that was out. We didn't know they were rudderless. We got a plan. Yeah. There's been some announcements lately about some casting. Anybody have any thoughts?
I'm excited that James Gunn's brother is going to be Maxwell Lord.
If we have that JLI, go ahead.
Yeah.
If we have the JLI and Suicide Squad mating, he'll be on both sides.
Mm-hmm. There you go. So. I was just going to say with Aquaman though, man, I remember that Christmas a few Christmases ago where Wonder Woman ruined Christmas for the whole country. That second Wonder Woman picture. Like, I'm not going to watch Aquaman on Christmas. No way.
I did watch Wonder Woman around Christmas. It wasn't Christmas proper, but
that second one
was good.
Oh,
there's Max Lord in that too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
And he did confirm, I think yesterday, that Nicholas Hoult will be
Lex Luthor.
Will be Lex Luthor.
Way back when Chris Reeve was cast and like the buzz happening and who will be Superman, boy, it seems so cyclical to an older guy, right? Like, oh, now here's the new person, and it's always the same. Like, that person will stink. That actor can never do it. And then, and then they're in it for a few years. It's like, oh, nobody could be as good as this actor. You can't fire that guy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think Marvel might be the only place that I think Gal Gadot had a really good reaction when they cast her. But Marvel has had some casting choices where people went, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I know there were people who wanted different people to play Doctor Strange, but like, if you can get Benedict Cumberbatch, you get Benedict Cumberbatch. Like, it's
right.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, that's good. I think that's a positive thing. We're gonna switch gears and we're gonna start talking about TV. But before we get to that, we're gonna bring in our latest guest, fan favorite and PCS member who's been on the show a couple times this year, and we're gonna bring him back for a third time. Welcome to the SquadCast, Dean Haspiel.
Hey, everybody.
Whoa,
hey, Dino.
No.
Oh, how are you?
Good.
How's it going?
Where's your eggnog?
My eggnog is Biggie Smalls whiskey.
I'm out of eggnog. I've gone to whiskey, so we're good.
So there you go. And I'm trying to make some Christmas cards here while we're talking. So
that's fine. That's fine. How was your year?
So far behind.
How was my year? Well, hi, Sherry. My year was pretty interesting, and you guys were a little bit a part of it because I entered Kickstarter realm this year.
One of us. And
is that TV show starring Pedro Pascal?
We're about to talk about that.
No, but he played Maxwell Lord in your Wonder Woman 2 movie.
Yes.
Which is
everything's Pascal.
It wasn't my movie.
And then I mean, I love Pedro Pascal, and I love it when he plays a grandma on SNL.
Oh my God, that was
he's amazing. But Reed Richards?
Yeah, I don't know how they feel. That's not official. That's not official, and I don't know.
Not official. Okay.
Not official.
Unless you want to make an announcement here, Dean.
Well, actually, I've been growing. I don't know if you can see the This is natural. I have a little bit of a white.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, I can't help
Smell
myself. Wait,
What's
just
this?
happened?
What is this?
Yeah.
Oh wow! Oh,
Did this
that.
happen this year?
That's one of my Kickstarters. So
Yeah.
basically, to answer your question before is I'm kind of living off the fumes of Kickstarter right now because I only did 2 of them, you know, and I've had a couple of little gigs. One of them mentoring comics at the Atlantic Center for the Arts earlier this year in February and March, and recently I've drawn a couple of little gigs. You know what's messed up? I've written and drawn some really cool comics that have been sitting in the hopper for a couple of years. And I'm waiting for publishers to publish them.
Got to get them out.
These are work for hire gigs.
They were work for hire gigs. I'll just name one of them, Conan the Barbarian.
You have a Conan story out? There's a Conan story out there that hasn't been printed?
Yeah, man. What the hell? Okay. So
will it be a Titan or was it with the old publisher or what?
It's with this new publisher.
Oh, great.
And there was a regime change editorially recently. But I worked with that first person, and now I'm talking to the other regime. And it's not spoilers or nothing. It's a Conan comic. A lot of people do these things, you know. Now we have a comic convention.
Yeah.
And
that Conan book is great, by the way.
It is really good. It is. You know what's weird though? That artist is so good, but he's so much accessing John Buscema, and usually, you know, the hateful fans are like, he's copying and stealing, and you know, from, and usually you would hear that, and no one is saying that at all. It's almost like they've accepted. Yeah, we want this. Please keep this here. Please keep making these comics that look like this. And in a weird way, that's how much of a stamp John Buscema put on Conan, that you want that. So they might as well just have Frazetta cover. Who is he? The one who did the pulp covers for Conan?
Paperback.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm of 2 minds. Like I really enjoy it, but I feel guilty, or like I feel like it's liking AI or something. You know.
I know, but there's no swiping. It's just like he's accessing, you know, and doing his own thing with a certain style, a certain flair. So it's really cool. I think it's a lot of fun, and hopefully I'll do more. Conan is not a character I ever thought I would write and draw, and I had a tough time trying to figure out a story that maybe had not been done, and also because I'm not a big reader of Conan, so I was asked to read a couple of stories just to get a sense. And what's interesting about Robert E. Howard? Is he the creator, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I feel like a lot of his Conan stories were like failed pitches for other characters and other genres and other stories.
Oh, interesting.
So he work it back into, I didn't sell it over there, so I'm going to turn it into a Conan story. Because Conan is so many things, you know? And that's why he's an interesting character in a lot of ways, you know?
Well,
yeah. You know, Roy Thomas would take a lot of other pulp characters and turn them into Marvel Conan stories back in the day.
Really?
Like, issue 55 of the old series was a different, you know, a totally different character by a different author, but you know, in Marvel comics it'd be a Marvel thing, like just what you're saying in reverse. So it makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's funny because I think that from what I understand is that he like Roy would literally like underline passages from a novel, a Conan novel, and hand it to the artist and say, draw this, and then basically reinterpolate the text. But then I'm sure after a while you just write your own stories, right? I mean, that's what happens. Yeah. So I would love to see a Tom Conan story, a romance.
I would love to do that.
Right?
That would be so cool. I did watch this documentary about Robert E. Howard and that
someone else.
It was someone else.
But you know what?
All of a sudden, my brain was going to make a joke about John Carter, but I realized I was actually going to the Vincent D'Onofrio movie where he plays Robert E. Howard.
So. Right. Oh, right. And didn't. Oh, now I'm thinking of something else. But okay, yeah, we're conflating.
He did write. Yeah, he did write John Carter, right?
Edgar Rice Burroughs did John Carter, right?
Oh,
yeah. The Tarzan guy did that.
Yeah. The Tarzan guy, yeah.
See, it's not just me.
It is
one of the variant covers that Titan published recently for Conan was a Dan Parent cover, Archie.
Really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So they're open, Tom, I believe. And in fact, they're coming out with that Savage Sword of Conan, right? Which is going to be a black and white comic. And I think they are open to kind of getting a little funky. So
like
if you
that.
come up with an idea, what if you even just wrote it? You know what I'm saying? Like, have you collaborated, Tom?
Yes, I have. You and I will talk after this.
Okay.
I have a couple Conan commissions that I've done that I'm a huge fan of, but I would love to take a shot at writing them.
Yeah, man, that's cool. But going back to Bob, when you asked, like, basically my year has been trying to carve or keep this autonomous lane I've been on ever since I did the Red Hook at Webtoon, you know? And it is a harder time right now, I think, to do comics in terms of a business. It's a easier time for anyone to do comics because you just put it out there, right? But to actually make a living has gotten a little harder. And I was listening earlier to Tom and you guys talking about the amount of conventions you do. I think I do like 3 or 4 conventions a year, maybe, honestly. And I need to do more, especially if I'm going to be kind of a self-publisher, of sorts.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, this might be a little too TMI, but are you paying for tables and hotels for all those 16 conventions?
I am not. I will tell you there are probably only about 4 shows that I'm paying for.
Okay, see, that's helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, I pay for San Diego, but I feel like that's you kind of have to do that, or unless you have some. I mean, I don't pay for the badge because luckily I've been grandfathered in, but hotel and in this case, we got a house like a half hour away. That's how bad it got, So
to me, there are 2 kinds of shows. There are advertising shows and there are sales shows.
Mm-hmm.
So like San Diego is advertising. Like if I can break even, I'm happy because I feel like I need to be there to promote myself. But then there are other shows. Like I just did GalaxyCon in Columbus, which was a lot of fun.
Right.
And Bob was there. But that's a show that, like, while a lot more networking happened than I would have thought, I didn't go there to network. I went there to sell books.
Yeah, I've gotten invited, thankfully. Like usually the cons I go to, the ones I get invited to, like Baltimore Comic Con is like our family show, for a lot of cartoonists.
Sure. Great show.
And like I'm kind of like deciding, do I go back and try to dip my toes back into the indie waters of like an SPX or a Mocha, like once you've gone mainstream a little bit, and again, I'm not fully mainstream, I never have been. But I think once you've done that, I think a lot of those shows look at you a little differently,
Yeah.
And they probably rather shoehorn someone in that's brand new or only stays in the independent kind of, pond, as it were, and I don't know. It's weird because some of us like hopscotch between the two a lot.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not it's good.
I will tell you that working on My Little Pony changed the conventions that I did. Well, even for as much as I'm doing Webtoon and create our own stuff, it's an easier sell when you've done something that people have known. If you've worked on something that people have known about, it makes all your other stuff feel more valid.
Sure.
Right. To be reductive, but yeah.
Well, I mean, certain things will put you more on the map because of the reference, right? Or the source material.
Right.
And then really the gamble is, oh, you came here for My Little Pony, but you might want to check out this other stuff you don't know about, right? And then maybe they even like that better or whatever. I don't know, so. But now I gotta do a My Little Pony story.
You have a Superman story this year.
Yeah. How about if Conan rides My Little Pony? Like I see that as the big idea.
I mean, there's something there. What I was trying to figure out was like when I was saying about Robert E. Howard would take a story a pitch that didn't sell for another genre and then turn it into a Conan story. I felt like there's certain things I've written that if I don't sell, they still are so closely attached to this. Like a Batman story could, if there's specific things, it has to be a Batman story whether you sell it or not. But there was a couple of Conan ideas that came up with. I was like, well, I could come up with my own Conan, but then I could not figure out a name that was as cool as Conan, and yet kind of reference it.
The least of your problems.
Huh?
That's the least of your problems.
I know it is. But like, and I'm sure I would come up with something, but everyone would know that's your Conan, isn't it? That's your failed Conan story. You know, like anyway.
Listen, the key, and this is, conversations I've had with people over the year, and Mike and I have had, the key is to make a good story, right? And if you have a good story, it doesn't matter that,
Right.
that when you envision the story, that the lead character is named Bruce Wayne. Like, that doesn't have to be that place. He's an archetype that you can, adapt. There's plenty of other characters who've taken that archetype and built stories around them. Is the story what you want to tell? What's behind that?
Yeah.
Like, there's stories I have that are, I'm never going to write a Superman story, but I have a Superman story.
Right. I mean, we all. I mean, and sometimes that's hard to do. Like for me, trying to come up with a Superman story proper. Like I have some stories that involve Superman, but
Didn't you have a Superman story this year?
I drew one that Cena Grace wrote. Right.
Yes.
So that was last Thanksgiving. Yeah, like a year ago.
Was it a year ago? Okay.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean,
fine.
I've tried to think about my own versions. I mean, whenever I've talked to like Howard Chaykin and Walt Simonson, they have really fun ideas. Like, it takes a while because these legacy characters have been around forever. It's like, how do you do a new story with these characters, or what can you remove, and what kind of constraints can you apply so you can write certain stories?
How would you do your own version of Superman? Let me think.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's and you can't say no.
I don't know.
But
maybe put him in a red suit
there
with
you
yellow
go.
tape.
What if I wrote it like a romance?
Maybe focus on the romance.
I mean, come on, everything's a romance. I mean, I think Tom's on board with that as well. Like, the best stories involve some kind of romance.
Mm-hmm.
But I watched a movie last night because you guys were talking about movies. I watched a movie last night that I wasn't necessarily going to watch, but I was tired. And I looked at it, and it was 90 minutes long, and I thought, I'll start this at midnight, and if I fall asleep, I fall asleep. And it's called 65.
Okay. Yep.
Have you seen this movie, Adam Driver?
No, but it's the Adam Driver movie. That movie was supposed to be a big hit, and it finished 56th in the box office this year.
Right. And I don't know if it's a proper like Netflix movie first or something. I don't know. It had a theatrical release.
I think it did have a theatrical release, but
okay.
What happened as a picture, and what was it?
Your story, Dino.
It's a very simple plot, and I actually appreciate that. And it was pretty well made. And I think the problem with the movie is that it's 20 years too late. I think 20 years ago, you'd be like, oh, wow, that's great. Like this really cool kind of, it takes place 65 million years ago on planet Earth. That's why it's called 65. So basically, Adam Driver, who speaks English and looks like an American and has this little family, is actually an alien from another planet that has to get on a spaceship and crash lands, lo and behold, on Earth 65 million years ago, about a day or two before the meteorite that came down and destroyed the dinosaurs. So he's on a planet that's really hostile Earth. It's basically instead of Twitter, it's volcanic ash.
Which is worse. I don't know.
I know, right? So I mean, there's a sequel where he comes to Earth now. Anyway, but so that was kind of the only twist, really, and it was like some fun little dinosaur, stuff. And there's this young girl who reminds him of his daughter he left behind, who's ill, and it has all the trappings, right? But it also felt so rote at the same time. So it's not a bad movie, but I've seen that movie a million times.
Right.
That kind of. So I was a little surprised that Adam Driver's agent let him do it, because there wasn't something kind of extra special about it, and you would think that he would get the bigger scripts that would allow for that. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
You made me interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to watch it now.
Oh, I think it's not bad. And actually there was another movie came out, I don't know, about a month ago, and I forget what streaming channel it was. And I started watching another case of, it's late night. I don't want to watch the movie I would really want to pay attention to, so let me just click this on. That's how I kind of throw a dart at a movie these days, right?
Yeah.
The one where I can fall asleep.
Now we're all familiar with Dean's watching patterns. Go ahead.
My watching algorithm is a mental dart. Like, oh, that looks cool. And I forget the name of it. It's a weird title, but basically it's about a girl in a house and an alien invasion. And there's 2 words spoken the entire movie. It's basically not a silent film, but there's no dialogue. And even when someone's about to talk, something happens to stop them from talking. So you don't really notice it for the first hour. And then you realize, oh, she's in a house trapped and an alien invasion has happened. It's very Spielbergian in that way, you know? And it was actually pretty good. And I can't remember if it was like a Netflix thing. I don't know. I know the other Netflix movie I saw was The Killer.
And what do you think of that? Now, that's a comic book movie.
And you know what? When I knew that, I was like, well, what were the attributes that were taken from a comic book? And because most of the movie is very cinematic, action oriented, but it has a narrator. It's the protagonist narrates a lot. I felt, oh, that's how you would make the comic book, is the interior monologue, you know, which isn't totally 100%, you know, stolen from a comic book, because, you know, that happens in movies all the time as well, you know. It could happen in theater in a certain way, you know. But I actually thought it was a lot of fun. It was another case of, oh, I've seen that plot 1 billion times, but it's the way you do it. And he's such a good filmmaker, and the acting was so good. And I liked the script, so I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie.
Yeah. Had you read the comic, Dean, before?
No, I haven't. And
I think I read the first volume.
What?
I read the first volume. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's European, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to. And by the way, I'm sorry, I'm recapping with you guys. I love The Flash.
That's fine.
I like The Flash. The only thing that freaked me out, and literally I almost put pause in the movie and stopped, was the baby in the microwave. I couldn't do it.
I haven't seen it.
Messed me up, man. It's early on. It messes you up.
I'm the only one in my house who hasn't seen it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And why?
Because when it came out, I had I think I had back-to-back conventions and a work trip in the middle of it. So I just didn't get there, and I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet. I'm going to. I just haven't gotten to it. I'm very excited to see Supergirl. That's my biggest part of it.
You know, there was Supergirl Barbie. I just found out. I think I might get it for one of the children, of course. Yeah, based on that version of Supergirl.
Hey, look what I found. Check this out.
Oh, wow. It's Conan. Wait, you did a Conan? And
I told you I did a Conan, yeah.
Oh, wow. See, that's cool, man.
Right?
I want to see that. And that's a little romance, right? You do a little romance comic right there.
Yeah.
Hey,
but I think the license is different, because Dynamite has the Sonya license.
When was the last time anybody saw the Red Sonja movie? Oh, no, am I thinking Red Sonja? No, is it Sheena?
There was a Red Sonja movie. That was Bridget.
There was a Red Sonja movie, and there's a Sheena movie.
What's the Tanya Roberts movie?
Sheena.
That's the Sheena movie.
Yo, have you seen that in a while?
I'm not.
No.
In a while. I haven't watched Red Sonja in a while. There's supposed to be a new Red Sonja
for kids. Full frontal. She
80s
takes
for a different time.
Like a shower in like a waterfall for like an hour. It's like half the movie.
Holy smoke!
Yeah. Check it out. It's for kids. All right. That's back when PG-13 meant something. Okay.
The first movie the first movie that I ever went on a date with my wife had Tanya Roberts in it.
And she passed away, right? Not your wife.
It was A View to a Kill.
Oh, View to Kill. She was a Bond girl.
She was a Bond girl.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
All right. Let's switch topics a little bit. Let's talk about TV.
Succession. That's all you need to know.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Who watched Succession? Did anybody? You haven't watched it. So I haven't watched it. I am terrible at consuming things that I want to consume. But I do know what goes on. What was that, Ed?
I am too, except for food.
I know it's a big. I know what goes on, and I know it was a big deal. And my kids watched it. What was? Why was Succession such a big, interesting show for you, Dean?
Well, one of the things I learned from the show as a budding writer of theater and comics and whatnot is it seemed like every episode, and nobody here watched the show.
No, you're on. I mean, I know much.
I know of it. Yeah.
It seemed like every episode, it was very Shakespearean in that every episode revolved around a giant event, a wedding, a birthday, a political thing, a crash, whatever it was, like, and I started noticing like these tropes. I was like, what an interesting way to heighten the drama by having not only the characters dealing with their personal narratives or whatever is going on, but then also a world kind of thing or something that's really important to one character and how that's going to derail or there's going to be a benefit or not from it. And I thought, I don't do that enough in my stories.
That is why Shane Black says he sets everything at Christmas.
At Christmas time. That's right. That's right. So, but also it was kind of like a modern Shakespeare. I also at Christmas time. That's right. That's right. What just happened? But also it was kind of like a modern Shakespeare. I also somebody's.
It's Ed. Ed's watching something.
He's watching us.
It's watching
somebody. And
wait, AI Dino has just entered. I'm gonna do my little Max Headroom kind of. But I also think that I also understand how like vile and disgusting everyone was, but technically so were Reservoir Dogs. And when you watch the movie Reservoir Dogs, you pretty much love every character. But if you on paper, these are vile human beings. Okay, same thing goes for Succession. Okay, on paper and even in behavior, you're like, what the fuck are these people? Like, why? But you just attach yourself somehow to their plight, and it was just bombastic and yet very well conceived and brought new ideas to every story that they, drama is drama. Soap operas, use a certain thing, and they would somehow find a twist or a way to put in something that you didn't even see coming, but was always there. And I feel like that's one of the beautiful secrets of writing is when you can craft something like that.
I mean, I agree. It's definitely considered, the best TV of the year by a lot of people. It's definitely up there. And, it's great. It's great also that things like this where I think we've entered there's a different world than when we were younger, that when we were younger, everybody had to be in front of the TV at a particular time on a particular day to watch. There was appointment television that we had to have, and that doesn't exist anymore. That's gone out the window. But there is this zeitgeist consuming of series that it came out today. I got to follow up, and you have a couple of days, and you don't have to be there at that moment. But there is that type of thing. So when that was happening and that was getting to the end of it, that was a big deal. There was a couple of other series this year that kind of came out that had big type of feeling. Anybody else want to pop something else in?
Well, I'll throw in Beef. If anybody saw Beef.
Well, Beef is definitely up on the list.
Yeah.
The Bear was one of them, right? People talked a lot. Did you see that?
That's great.
No, I did not. No, I'm lousy at keeping up with TV.
What did you watch though? Let is there anything you watched this year?
Oh, we just started watching Poker Face, which was like last year.
Well, no, that's one of the best ones of the year. That was this year. It's still in there. It's,
this year? Okay.
On the list. Yeah. What did you think of it? What have you thought of it?
Loved it. We just went through a routine though where we were watching a lot of old Rockford Files.
Oh yeah, those.
And I loved them way back when, and you kind of see them with mature eyes, and in many ways, a show like Poker Face is, a modern updating of all that.
Yep.
I've heard a lot of good things about it. Anybody else? You watch it at all, Tom?
No.
You're shaking? You watched it, Dean?
It's great. What's cool about Poker Face? Well, there's two thoughts. One is that it feels very episodic because there is a murder mystery that gets solved, but there's also the arc that happens. There is a little background thing happening so that it becomes a season.
Right.
My only issue, and she's a great actress, is that she kind of grates on me, her voice.
I was just going to say the voice. Yeah.
But also that's such a characteristic of hers that's undeniable. And it's not, I'm not trying to insult or anything, but I sometimes have to wrestle with her.
Yeah.
And I love her. I've loved her since
Oh yeah.
what was the movie in Beverly Hills or something? What was it?
I
called?
know.
The Slums of Beverly Hills, right?
Yeah.
And she's amazing in that, and I've loved her in it. But like, wow, there's just a very particular brand of human being.
Yeah.
But also that helps serve the story because she's a particular type of character, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Yeah. I mean, she seemed very, very real, like someone I kind of almost sort of know, sort of thing. And yeah.
Oh, she's very available, you know, like and like she's a people person. That's part of her character. She takes these crappy jobs while I guess driving kind of across America, is kind of escaping in some ways, but she can't escape who she truly is, which is a truth teller, you know. And the fun little winks at is it Columbo, right?
Yeah.
Which is awesome, you know, and who doesn't love Columbo? Ed, I've done something recent that you might, where everyone here might appreciate, which is I've kind of gotten overwhelmed by new TV, even though I've tried to watch a couple of things that I've mentioned here that are modern and current. I don't really have that appointment TV kind of,
Sure.
watch it comes out usually and that's why I hate spoilers when people go online. They're like, I'm like, no, don't do that to it. But I watched like the first episode of Moonlighting recently.
Oh, cool. Good for you.
I want to watch that. I know it just came out. It just came back on what is it, on Hulu or something?
Yeah. And like, she's great. And the second Bruce Willis shows up, you're like, he's a star. He is stealing every moment.
Yep.
Awesome.
I remember watching that show.
Oh,
loving
such
that
a
show.
big deal. Yeah.
And even though it's a little dated and maybe is a little slower than what we're used to these days, it's so good. And it just made me think like, I watched look at me. I sound like I watch a lot of things and maybe I do. I just watched the new Julia Roberts Apocalypse movie.
I heard that was terrible.
I loved it.
Really?
I
heard it was not good at all.
I loved it. And there's something that happens at the very end, I'm not going to spoil it here, that I truly appreciated. And I feel like I've written myself. But going back to the idea of like, we still have such great television. If you stopped watching new TV, you still have such great old TV. You know, I mean, it's obvious. But it's just, it feels different when you watch it. Maybe for nostalgic reasons, it feels different. But also, it's just a different tempo and a different time, you know?
You can see the way that they're making it and, the things they were wrestling with. And, if you get bogged down, it's like, the pace is so slow or, it's a little talky by today's standards. And once you get past that, you can appreciate it all.
And there's a little more theater happening because there would be longer shots to do the scene, especially if it's like a 2-camera, like Friends type thing or whatever. But man, it just when I worked on the TV show Bored to Death for HBO with Jonathan Ames, right? And I was like the artist because the Zach Galifianakis character was loosely based on me, right? And so I got to be around that stuff. But I think that what hurt the show is what is also the virtue of the show, which was that there weren't like these extreme black and white characters. There weren't like these people who you could either love or hate. It was in this gray area where people were still complicated. And like the good guys were also kind of losers. And the bad guys were kind of good guys, and it was this little middle section. And I love that sensibility. And I feel like that's older TV as well, in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good for you.
I want to there's a show that I watched this year. That has a lot of characters that are gray in a lot of ways. Even when you think of in certain ways, there are other, and that's The Last of Us. I don't know if anybody else watched that.
It was great. Oh wait! No, I'm thinking of the Pedro Pascal show.
Yeah, the Pedro Pascal,
That's
The Last of Us.
Unbelievable.
It is it was a wonderful show. That was a show that I needed to watch the day it came out, or the couple of days after. I needed to consume that show. I loved it. There were some amazing performances in it. It wasn't. I wouldn't say it's perfect. There's still some. I still have some complaints about certain pacing. But
you're wrong, Bob. You're wrong. Your opinion is wrong.
Well, that's fair. But I was captivated from the minute to end. And one of the things that's different, because one of the other shows that I did watch this year was House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones prequel, which in that show I hated every single person. There was nobody on the screen that I enjoyed or cared about. I enjoyed the show, and that's not something that's normally me. The way I need to attach to somebody. I need to see somebody that I can have empathy for.
Agreed.
And I didn't find that in that show, but I still enjoyed the ridiculous chaos of it. Whereas with The Last of Us, even though the characters were gray in a lot of ways, and they did things that were questionable, morally, you could get behind them, and that's good storytelling. And one of the most interesting things I liked about that was at the end of the day, at the end of the episode, they would have a little conversation about how they had to make choices and do things, how they made things going in, that like one of the things was there's an episode where there's a character who's deaf in the show, and the actor is deaf, and they talked about how they made those changes and how that worked out on the set, and that was really, really interesting. But I really enjoyed that.
That's in the Game of Thrones prequel?
No, that's in Last of Us.
Oh, The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Before, when you were talking about the end, they recap. Was that The Last of Us or the Game of Thrones?
No, that's in Last of Us. Watch the post credits recaps in Last of Us. Go back and watch them. They're great.
Oh wow! All right, because you're kind of reminding me of in Hill Street Blues when the captain would get back in bed with his lawyer.
Yeah.
And they recap the day.
They're with the directors and writers and stuff like that, talking about how they made the show.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're kind of behind the scenes stuff.
Behind the scenes.
And,
all right.
And Bob, just for me, what happened with that Last of the Dragon? That was a big flop, or I felt like I didn't hear about it.
It did really well.
It did really well. It's not real.
They're doing a season 2.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's a fan base that like the Game of Thrones, the season 8 of Game of Thrones was
problematic.
Fans of the show have a lot of problems with it, and but that didn't make them not fans of the show. And so there's a lot of response to people who are fans of the books and the thing. And this is set hundreds of years before the show, so it's kind of certain things, like the main characters, how their end comes. You know that this happens because it's historical in the Game of Thrones. Like Joffrey tells you in like season 3 or 2 exactly what happens to the main character. So you're just waiting to get to that point, but it's still interesting. I don't know. I thought so. What do you think?
Yeah.
You bring up an interesting question. Like,
I think
the idea that when you know the ending of a character, how interesting is the story that's being told, even though you know how they die, right? And I think it was Alan Moore that said that what creates a legendary character, I forget the word he used, was when a character does die, when they do have an end or something.
Sure.
Because we then of course in comic books, characters die and they get resurrected, except for Uncle Ben.
Used to be Bucky. Used to be Bucky and
Bucky and Gwen Stacy, but didn't she officially get resurrected?
Gwen's not officially. Gwen is still dead in the 6
She's still dead. Okay. But yeah,
there are multiverse versions of Gwen that exist and are fun. But
right.
But Gwen Stacy still died.
She's still dead. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah,
only
you
a
think of
couple.
like a character that dies in the last 10 minutes of a movie, and then you remember that character forever, right? As opposed to like all the folks who made it to the end. And yeah, that's a powerful thing.
You ever see To Live and Die in L.A., the William Friedkin film?
Oh, yeah.
There's a great moment in the movie, spoiler and for the conversation, I'm sorry, turn off for 1 minute. The protagonist gets killed about a half hour before the movie ends. And you're like, wait, he did not just get killed right now. There's no way. But he totally got killed. And so the secondary character has to pick up the dramatic baton, and start running with it. And you follow this this chucklehead has to finish the movie, like, wait, what? That's insane.
And is it good? Does that make it for you?
I thought it really worked well. It totally worked. I mean, Psycho, famously, by the end of the first reel, our protagonist, no mas. And then there's more story. And then you find out what the story's about, right? So, yeah, I love that.
We have a comment from the viewers who watched the last season of the season 3 of Ted Lasso.
I did.
What do you think?
I enjoyed it, but the more I think about it, it did not stick the landing. I think there are characters that are serviced poorly at the end, and I don't think they knew. I was disappointed that it didn't feel like they knew how to end it. There's a lot of jumps that they make.
I agree with you, and I think it was I was entertained, right? So
yeah.
This is how I view things. Am I entertained by the experience? It takes a lot for me to walk out of something in the moment and say, I didn't like that.
Right. It was.
And I didn't have that with this. I can see looking back that I probably would have wanted things to be done differently. But I think it was interesting.
You're right. It was enjoyable, but it never matched the brilliance of the first season. And I think there were probably lots of reasons for that. In particular, I didn't like what they did with Roy and Jamie, because I felt like those characters took a step back. I think the writers needed to make a choice, and they didn't want to make one.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I didn't like there was a part at the beginning of the season that I enjoyed what was going on with Roy and Jamie, and the middle of the season it changed in a way that I thought was absolutely a step backward. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I went to a movie and I was incredibly disappointed. Anyone who knows me, like I said, it takes a lot for me to be upset in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Napoleon was a horrible movie. By far the worst movie that Ridley Scott has ever made.
Oh,
have you seen 1492?
No, but it's bad. It's bad.
Okay. Wait. He did Prometheus, right?
That was pretty rough too.
Yeah.
Did he come back and do those? I haven't watched those yet.
Yeah, he did Prometheus. I want those hours back.
Oh,
I've heard interesting. That's a movie that I've heard dueling opinions on.
I had a friend who told me all the reasons it was great, and my response was, if any of that had been in the film, I would have enjoyed it.
I did love Mission Impossible, the new Mission. I know you were saying before. It's so good. It's so good.
But actually the two shows that I've liked the most this year, Picard season 3.
Okay.
Which while there are little hiccups along the way, it did what it needed to do. And I felt so good. I was watching clips of it before this started. Sometimes I do that. And I really, 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 and it'll probably suffer the same fate, but I really, really, really like Shrinking.
I like Shrinking too. I haven't finished it. I'm looking forward to finishing it. I have
what's shrinking. What's shrinking?
Shrinking
It's on
is
Apple
by the guy
TV.
who did Ted Lasso. It stars Jason from How I Met Your Mother and Harrison Ford
What?
and Krista Miller. And what's interesting about Harrison Ford is he's turned into Wilford Brimley.
Oh wow.
And that Wilford Brimley could only deliver a line one way,
Yeah.
but it could be it could be like when he was on that show with Deidre Hall, like, hey, you got to go talk to your granddaughter. Or he could be really chilling the same way, going, pictures, Mitch, the kind of pictures that ruin a marriage. And Harrison Ford delivers every line the same way, but when he does it as a joke, it's hysterical.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm a silver fox. I'm like, yes.
Right.
No, yeah, I will grant you
Diabetes.
that I watched that, and you and I have talked about it, and I am incredibly disappointed that he did not get nominated for Emmy for that.
Yeah, he was my favorite. Actually, both those shows. I think Harrison Ford was the best supporting actor this year out of the stuff I've seen. I mean, there could be stuff I don't know about, but out of the stuff I've seen, he was that. And number 2, surprisingly, was Jonathan Frakes in Picard. Like,
Yep. So we have
Jonathan Frakes was never that good an actor. He was fine, but he's transcendent in Picard in a way that he had never been before.
Yeah, he comes across as a great guy every interview he does.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just seems like a personable fella.
He would hang out at the Wizard World Comic Cons. He'd hang out at the bar with folks. He's a really nice guy. Maybe becoming a director helped him become a better actor.
I really think it did, because I've heard flaws about his directing, but he's a pretty good director and he gets good performances. Like he was very kind to me when I asked an incredibly silly, intensely detailed question about a movie he did. So
that's cool.
That's
I like that.
It's funny how we didn't talk
Barry
about
this year.
Did what?
Barry.
I didn't see it.
Did we watch Barry?
I have not seen. I love Barry. I am very far behind on it. But Ed, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say it's funny. Like, I can't believe there was an Indiana Jones film that came out and like it didn't even make it to our movie reviews.
Oh, I liked it.
It was the 12th biggest box office movie of the year. Just behind the biggest pop culture event of the year, which is Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour movie.
Oh.
Like, I mean, we can't talk about 2023 in pop culture and not talk about Taylor Swift. Although none of us should be talking about Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Oh, she should be dating me.
Well, there is that.
Because the songs she would write and the comics that I would write about that relationship, like,
yeah, but you can't go into a relationship that is planned to end.
But that's what would happen. Because at some point she would say, I'm feeling a song coming on. I'm going, that's okay. I got to pitch a comic book. And we'd be with like 6 more months. Okay, done.
Yep.
Be so beautiful.
That's awesome.
Me or Taylor Swift?
Well, yeah, Taylor Swift and your comment. Good. Comics. Let's talk about comics. There has been a lot of hubbub in the comics, interwebs these days. A lot of people are saying things, and I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the negative aspect of this, but a lot of people are talking about the death of comics, comic stores. People are upset. People are saying that comics are ending. We have 2 comic creators here, and someone who else publishes in the comics community. Would you guys have? Do you have opinions? Do you want to talk about it? I mean, one of the things I see let me throw my perspective in this. There's been a bunch of new publishers come out, and we can talk about that a little bit if we want to. But the end of the day, consumers want to read and consume stories that are entertaining. And if there's a way to get that type of entertaining story into consumers' hands, and understanding that not every story is for every reader, stop complaining.
Yeah. So I've seen some of the same stuff, and like everything's super complicated and nuanced, but I feel like comics are like that line Ian Malcolm has in Jurassic Park. Life finds a way.
Yeah,
like
fair.
It's like TV, like how movies have lost a little bit of their luster because TV's become so big and streaming's different, and like I think comics will always be there, but it won't necessarily be where people are right now. And change is scary. But I have a particular perspective coming out of art school, being a letterer right as computer lettering was coming out.
Oh,
And
Sure.
I could have decided to hang on to traditional lettering, or I had decided if I wanted a computer letter. And like you're surfing a wave and the ground underneath you is always shifting. So because some of the same arguments that I was seeing to explain why certain books shouldn't count because they're not sold in traditional venues would also disqualify the most successful cartoonists of our lifetime. Well, successful book cartoon, Rena Telligmeyer, who's super huge, but she doesn't sell in comic shops.
Right.
I mean, not all not generic vanilla, you know what I'm talking about kind of comic shops. And Webtoon is the same way. Like, you're going to where an audience is that wasn't being serviced before, and it's still comics, but it's different. And to me, telling a story in pictures is the important part. The place where you get it is less important. Not that I want anyone to go out of business, but there's a part where like you have to figure out how to adapt. My mom was a real estate agent, and I remember when computers were coming big, and she's like, okay, but if they can go on this website and see houses, like, what am I supposed to do? Because I used to be able to pull those houses for them. How do I keep them from doing it? I'm like, you can't. Like, this is what's coming. Like, it's not good or bad. It's just the thing that's happening. And you have to figure out how to deal with that.
yeah.
That almost prompts the AI question, doesn't it?
I don't want to talk about it. Do you want to talk about AI?
I think we all know that it's here to stay, and whoever employs it, whatever. I don't know. I actually wrote a short film that could also be a one-act play about AI recently, because I had to respond to it in my own way. But it became kind of like a parody in some ways. I don't know. I don't love it for certain things. I still love that. I like when a hand makes a mistake on paper. I don't know, but I guess you can do that on a thing, on a plastic to plastic, and but then someone can reinterpolate it. I don't know.
I understand where you're coming from. Like I get that it's a tool. They're like,
I don't use it, but anyway. So.
No. I don't mean that. What I'm saying is it's a tool that people I don't want to consume it as art.
Yeah,
and maybe I'm different. Maybe it's different. Like maybe people, because there are people who make art in 100% in Photoshop or Clip Studio or whatever it is, and make amazing art with their hands and their minds. But there were people probably 30 years ago who would say that's not art.
Yeah, I think AI in general, not as far as comic book art specifically, there's a lot of stuff I'm really looking forward to with it, and places where I want to use it. There's a feature in Illustrator that lets you recolor stuff. So when I'm a graphic designer, I can tell it to make this blues and greens, and it does. And like, that's a job. It's not like my soul's not invested in it.
Mm-hmm.
I want AI to talk to my editors. I want AI to do solicitations for me. I am done trying to be polite and talk to people and remind them I'm out here. I would let AI write those generic, useless emails every day of the week. I haven't seen AI do anything so consistently and with a specific style that it's interesting to me. For lack of a super pejorative, it all looks like really good art on the side of a van to me.
It's a good way to say it.
Yeah, it's well rendered. Like once it figures out how hands work, because hands are difficult, like that's going to be better. But like the art that appeals to me is, you know, Kurt Schaffenberger or Darwin Cook or anyone like that who there's not a way to draw that one voice.
Right. I mean, and to be honest, you know, we have two artists on this show who, when you look at their art, you know that they drew it. You know, you guys are both people who've crafted a style that when I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's Dean, and that's that's Tom. I want to just we can get back to this, but I want to throw one thing to Ed. We were kind of talking about the consuming of art and consuming of comics and comics in general. You deal with you interact with a younger generation much more than I do. What type of vibe do you get off of your students in terms of how they are, or are they consuming comics? Do they read comics? The people who show up in your classes, and how do they do
you know, I get a few, and when someone says, "Oh, I love Batman" or "I love Iron Man," I always give them some like Batman or Iron Man comics, and I think quite often they go unread. You know, it's just not their thing or not their way to consume those stories. And, you know, and I get a little depressed about that. But then I remember, like when I was in college, there weren't many people who read comics either. Like I'd given to my buddies and they'd kind of, you know, crease the spines and, you know, read them a little bit. But, you know, I can remember there was a stage where all my buddies would read like Swamp Thing and Chaikin's American Flag and maybe one other that they liked, you know, they liked a couple things and that was it. And, you know, but we, you know, enjoyed all the other stuff. So yeah, I don't see like that translation, of course, like from other, you know, other media to that in an overwhelming amount. But, you know, part of the thing, you know, in general, like comics find a way. I get depressed even with like older people when they complain about comics today. You know, if I had unlimited funding and unlimited time, I feel like I could spend $100 in a comic shop every day, you know, and like leave with a pile of stuff that I'd be excited about. And, you know, there's so much great stuff out there. There's a lot of, you know, mediocre stuff, but there's so much great stuff to be consumed. And, you know, I wish that all that stuff could find the right people easier.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think my thing on this, and we can get back to something else, but here's where I want to take it with it. There are, I think empirically, I think if somebody were to do this, there are more people reading comics today than there were when we were in our 20s. I think that even though the because all of the numbers of comic book sales and consumption is skewed for weird things, but I think there are more people reading comics today, whether it's on Webtoon or from a bookstore or whatever it is. There are so many more people involved in reading what's going on today. I think people are upset that it's not this person, it's not the type of person that they think it should be. And one of the people, and it's interesting, it's not ironic, but not ironic. One of the people who has always been the person who spoke to me about comics living and not dying, and that comics are just evolving, and comics readers are evolving and continuing to grow, and comics are getting bigger, even though it doesn't look the way it used to, was Heidi McDonald. And she told me this 6 years ago when I was at a panel that she was attending, and she had this young artist who was just beginning into the game, and there was an older veteran there, and it was I think Larry Hama, I think it was, but you know, she said that then, and I ran into her a couple of times this year, and we were talking about it. She's like, comics are there, and I agree with her. I think that it's just, you know, the comic book movies, blockbusters, the way they are. I think that was an unsustainable thing. People should stop equating the success of Marvel Studios movies to comic books. I think people should stop equating what goes on in Marvel and DC to what is the concept of creating comics. And I think that while this conversation is always going to be happening, it's an evergreen conversation. Comics are always been dying. It's been dying for as long as we've all been reading them. Yet they continue.
Yeah.
I had a thought just yesterday that might be a terrible thought, but you know how sometimes, like, what was the New 52 or whatever?
Yeah.
Where Dan DiDio and it was like this weekly comic series, whatever. I was thinking how.
Are you talking about 52 or the New 52? Or you don't know the difference?
Sorry, I think the New 52 was a whole whatever.
The whole.
Yeah.
You know, and J.G. Jones, I think, did all the covers. And
Yeah, they were beautiful.
You're talking about 52.
52. The week.
Oh, then that's what I mean. Maybe 52.
It was a week countdown.
Right, but that was like a year long or something.
It was a year long
weeks,
series,
right?
52 weeks.
So I thought a new interesting idea for a 52-week stunt, okay, is more a cosmetic stunt than anything else, which is if you have so many old people still reading comics and grumbling, I wish the comics were like how they used to be, right? What if for a year, and we're talking about 12 issues of Spider-Man, 12 issues of Batman, not all the Batmans, not all the Spider-Mans, but, you know, the regular series and Fantastic Four and everything else. What if for a year you print publish the comics to look like comics from the 1960s? Meaning it had that lettering, that kind of 12 cent, 15 cent kind of font, you know? What if it was in that newsprint kind of feeling and it was 64 color palette for a year, you know? And you serve that fan base and see how did that work and made it feel like, oh, this isn't competing or complimenting
like
the movie.
this.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
What if comics, every comic, the new comics that came out today looked like that for a year, you know, with stuff that looked like that. At first, people were like, "Oh my God, what's happened?" But it would look like what comic books looked like. Okay,
Can it smell like this too?
you know, you add the little smell to it and whatever, and for a year, just see if people are like, "That's how I remember comics to be." And it would also turn on the new fans and be like, "Oh, that looks like some kind of old comic book or something." You know, the content would still be fresh and new, but it would look like old comics. And also the 64 color palette caveat.
Yeah, you know, that's a little bit where we started with that Titan Conan book. Like even, you know, the fonts they use on the title page. I think that's a brilliant idea, and you know, I'd almost say that's proof of concept. You know,
I think, and this is the graphic designer in me talking, I think there's a lot of people who don't know how to express the thing that they want to say.
True.
So it's not what they're feeling is invalid. It's like I had a political client once who didn't like a logo I designed for him because the letters were slanted and he thought that it made him look crooked.
Okay.
And
right.
Once I figured out what the thing was that was bothering him, I could figure it out, but like the way he was saying it was not what he was meaning. And the same way, do you remember along with 52, there was a Justice League like Skip Week series that they did with Agamemnon or something, but it was
Silver Age,
Silver Age.
Yeah.
Half those books were brilliant and half of them weren't.
Right.
Some of them really captured the vibe of that, like the 70s, 80s comics, 60s, 70s, 80s comics.
Right.
And some of them got too like deconstructive. And there is a thing that there are creators who think that because you can do a thing, you should do a thing.
Right.
And I've always found that the constraints that are placed on you force you to figure out new solutions and better ways of it pushes you to figure out different ways of doing things. And sometimes those things are more interesting.
Well, just like recently, if you're reading the new Fantastic Four series, they finally did something that I feel like hasn't been done unless it's an Alex Ross comic, is they have Alex Ross doing the covers for Fantastic Four. And it looks like a different comic, and it looks almost nostalgic because Alex Ross is the Norman Rockwell of comics, right? So it feels 1950s when you look at it, you know? And all I'm responding to and was just thinking about was like, sure, the content can still be fresh and new in 2024 or whatever, but to look like something that is still representative of what comics used to look like. Because comics now are glossy, and you know, or even when I did COVID Cop, I was like trying to make it look indie and artisanal so that it's Kickstarter quality, you know, or you're trying to compete with, you know, you're told that bookstores have told you there has to be this size in order to fit on the shelf.
Yeah. Dean, I think you're right, but the part that I worry about is when you say the stories can still be new and modern. And I feel like that's the part where they would trip.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
like
agree.
even on Picard season 3, people react. There was discussion about whether or not you needed profanity in the show,
Right.
and I don't think you did.
Right.
It didn't bother me on a molecular level, but the old show managed to do that without tapping into that, and it was still a great show.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are.
It didn't bother you on a bacon level, is what you're saying.
Yes, that bacon thing was still. Don't make me get another glass of wine on air.
I remember when Brian Azzarello, I think it was Brian Azzarello, was told that you could now say fuck in a Vertigo comic. I think he wrote fuck on the first page of 100 Bullets.
Yeah. But it's one of the places I feel like editors have changed in that they don't edit because creators are being brought in to bring their vision to a comic in a way that if I'm hired to write an episode of Grey's Anatomy, I can't say, well, my vision is that Meredith Grey is a dude and the show takes place in Chicago. I'm like, but that's not the show.
Right.
Like, you need to write a Grey's Anatomy. And I feel like comics have gone a little to the other way where people get to reinvent too much of the stuff, where it would be cool to see, along with your line of doing a classic line of comics, it would be cool to see them do like just a classic 70s or 80s version of the character. Like,
so you're talking about
no nudity, tell an entire story in 24 pages.
Right. Absolutely. Episodic.
Anti-Bendis it.
Right. It has constraints to it. It's not manga pacing. It's 24.
Yeah.
You know, it's Marvel 2-in-1. It's a Marvel 2-in-1.
Has some captions.
Right. Captions. No, I think that would be an interesting year of comics. And I think people would want to know what's the next issue. The whole story is going to be told in an issue. You know, like what is going on here? I mean, I think my favorite 12 issues of Superman is the Grant Morrison, Frank Whiteley.
Oh, yeah.
Also
I mean,
Superman.
it told an arc, but it also had individual issues. Yeah. And I was like, he figured it out. They figured it out.
And weirdly, I think you're seeing it in some other pop culture. Like you see it in Poker Face. Poker Face is episodic. You see it in Strange New Worlds, especially the first season, where they went back to like classic Star Trek storytelling, as opposed to like long arcs. And and I mean, I can talk Star Trek all day, but one of the reasons I like the combat in Star Trek up to the Next Generation movies is they couldn't afford to do everything. Right. So the battles had to be really smart because they couldn't just ram the ships because that was expensive. So you had to like start having them go up and down and come for each, Star Trek 2 thing. And that is born of we can't afford to show everything, so we have to make it intense. And yeah, but it takes a really, really firm hand to do that. And I don't think the power balance is there. Like it's hard.
Are you lamenting the loss of editors?
Yeah, like because I'm not working with him and I don't really know him, and it's been a while. Like,
Well, you're all, you're also creator-owned people. You guys are making your own stuff and you're doing your own things.
well, yeah,
Like, but I will grant, and we're getting in the weeds, and it's fine. It's how I feel. But one of the things that's going on, and I'm looking forward to in 2024 is I'm working with some people in some editor roles on some stuff, and part of the process of making a story is trusting that you as the auteur need somebody else to hear what you're saying, and having feedback, and what I think you're saying is that there's too many people who don't have anybody telling them no.
right.
What do you really mean? Or asking them the questions that the reader eventually will end up asking.
Yeah, like the example I was thinking of was Straczynski when he did that Superman walking story.
Yeah,
like I really think an editor should have gone, there's an idea here, not the one we got to work on this a little bit. And
it's probably that's probably the one interview that we did this year that I didn't ask that question, and that was one question I did want to ask was ask Phil Hester, like, what was the hardest thing you ever had to do?
yeah.
Would be picking up Superman after Straczynski.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering if you were talking like about the Chip Zdarsky Batman stuff, Tom. Is that, I don't know if you're reading that or if
What do
have
you
an
think?
opinion,
So
or if
do
that
you
needs an
have a
editor
concern on
or
that? Are you reading it, Ed?
kind of reading it like with one eye. I'll miss a few issues, then I'm kind of happy I did, and then I'll read it. I'm not really loving it, but
Interesting.
I don't know. You're digging it. You loving it?
I'm not. I have about 2 years worth of Batman I haven't read.
Oh yeah, I love all that guy's. I love his other stuff.
Oh,
I love New Burn and Still Water and all that.
His Daredevil is I may burn in hell for this, but his Daredevil is my favorite Daredevil.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, I didn't like that either, but in
I
general,
did.
I like
thought it
all
was-
his stuff.
Tom would like that. He gets very much into Matthew's religion.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's why I should write Daredevil, because I'm Catholic.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, but like it's very interesting.
It was the thing I liked the most in the first season of the show.
Yeah. And who knows what that'll be? I doubt that'll be part of the next version of it, to be honest with you. Because I don't think there's any concept of religion in the MCU.
Oh, now I gotta think.
Kamala.
Yeah, and
Kamala, it's very much. It's more cultural than.
It's more cultural. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They stay away from it.
Mm-hmm. And it's the safer choice. Like I don't. I think Daredevil, especially the first season, because I think you can tell when other people start writing that show. The first season had the right tone because it defined Matt without being preachy. Like it was just more character stripes. It wasn't plot stuff.
I believe that was Christos Gage and his wife, who were the showrunners, kind of.
Really?
I didn't know season one.
Wasn't it Stephen DeKnight too?
Yeah, I think so. But I think the head writers were, and then for some reason, as of season 2, they weren't part of it anymore. And then I forget who the showrunner was afterwards. It maybe became a little more Frank Miller-esque or something. I don't know. It was fun.
All right. Thank you guys for doing this as long as you have. Let's start to wind down. So what are we thinking about? Before we get to that, we have the right people on. So we're winding down 2023, and so therefore we're winding down the 40th anniversary of First Comics. And we did a couple of panels this year over through the history of First Comics, to people here who consumed it as it existed, what did First Comics mean to you? And one of the things that Mike said to me the other day is that he kind of has realized that maybe they actually did something that meant something, after all these years. I don't think he thought it in the moment or as things went around, but not now looking back on it, I think he is starting to recognize that First Comics made an impact. What do you guys have to say?
My knee-jerk reaction, and of course this is as an adult, not as a fan, as a kid at the time, which
Or a 17-year-old doing backgrounds.
Right, for American Flag. I mean, what the hell? But I was also reading those comics before I met Howard Chaykin. Okay, Star Slayer, and it's what introduced me to E-Man, even though E-Man was published by someone else previously. Was it Charlton or something?
Charlton.
And Sable, and what was it, Mars and Grimjack, and
Nexus, Badger.
Badger. Oh my God! What did Starlin have a book? Jim Starlin? I forget.
He brought Dreadstar.
Dreadstar, right? Dreadstar. I mean, so the adult in me is first of all, as a kid, I'm like, oh, independent comics that are just as cool as Marvel comics, if not more, right? Mm-hmm. Or DC comics, if not more. But really, what the elephant in the room, or the dirty secret, is it was organized, meaning it wasn't a universe. These characters didn't live in the same universe, as much as I tried to make that happen in my Baltimore Comic-Con, yearbook pinup.
Listen,
I don't think it was ever.
We were the two people who understood the assignment.
Well, there's a reason for that, Bob.
Yeah, right. But the idea that there was a publisher that organized, we need to have this kind of comic. We need to have this kind of comic. We need to have this kind of voice, this kind of author, right? So it celebrated the authors. And it's like, as a kid, you don't think about that. You think, oh, that's cool. Wait, they just came out with another cool comic? And then there was Pacific Comics. Was that what it's called? Pacific?
Yeah.
Pacific was before. PC was just before First, because Star Slayer was originally published at PC. The first 4.
Okay, that's what I'm remembering.
We're at PC. And that was Neil's.
Right. So, but Pacific Comics also had a slant on horror that I think First didn't have.
Yeah.
Probably.
I don't remember that. I don't
remember. Oh, yeah. There were all those anthology books like Bruce Jones.
Anthology books. Yeah. That was horror. And was it Pacific that also had Miss Mystic and the Steve Ditko backup, right? Okay.
They had Miss Mystic, and they also had Sunrunners.
I don't remember that. Was that Pat Broderick?
Pat Broderick's Sunrunners.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Wow. Okay. But anyway, the point is there was like this organized effort, kind of like what years later a Lion Forge would try to attempt and not be able to pull off. And I did some covers for some of their characters, and so there was something about, and I don't know how long the run was proper in terms of what First Comics was. It like a 5-6 year run? Like, what was it?
So the first book was published in 83. Mike left in 85. The Capital Comics purchase was in 85. They started publishing Nexus and Badger in like late 85, early 86. Okay. So, but by 87, things got weird. Kind of Mike had left, Grell had left John Sable, and Grimjack was ending for the most part. They started bringing in, they started reprinting, doing a lot of Michael Moorcock's Elric stuff.
Right, with P. Craig Russell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you find any of those books, the art in those books was ridiculous. Jan Buscema did some of it. Mary Mitchell did some of the art in some of those books.
And then I feel like Epic. I feel like Marvel's response to First and Pacific and those kinds of publishers was Epic and heavy metal.
I think
of
so.
course.
I think
Right.
I think first moved the needle in ways, and
Mhm.
we're getting I can talk about this forever, but and there'll be more in 2024 about this. But like, I think first moved the needle, and I think it pushed Marvel and DC.
Oh, yeah.
I think it gave them the guts to take bigger, more dangerous swings,
Yeah.
which
You know,
worked out for them.
yeah. Because I started getting into first around 85, 86. Like the big time I was into first was when everybody left.
Yeah.
That was also interesting because like Baron had left Nexus, Grell had left.
Shaken wasn't on Flag anymore, and
Yeah.
Right.
Larry Stroman and Alan Moore
Tim
brought it
left.
back up, and
Yeah. Wolfsburg.
But
Oh,
that,
right.
in a weird way, that made them feel like comics to me.
Mhm.
Like first was not so revolutionary. It was just like a different gear. Like it was like when HBO started doing television shows. Like, oh, there's more stuff we can do.
Sure.
Like you haven't seen this before, but they were still very much using comics to tell it. Like they weren't reinventing the medium. They were just, like I said, there was another gear. But knowing that those things existed and that it could still exist afterwards. Like Mike Baron was writing and Paul Smith was drawing. Like they still felt like comics because they had that continuity of being published by a play. Like it didn't feel like
Right.
just a single auteur doing a thing and when they left the book was over.
Right.
Um,
And that's
Yeah.
a perfect example of that is Grimjack, because Tim Truman left Grimjack first,
mhm.
and they brought in Tom Mandrake to take over, and it kept going, right? Like, so that was the concept. Like it wasn't just Love and Capes by Tom Zoller,
Right.
and it was only going to be Love and Capes by Tom Zoller. It was this is an ongoing series. The artist left, and we have a new artist, and this is what we're doing.
Yep.
So Tom, you're wrapping up volume 2 right now, right? With some new material of Love and Kate. No, of
Cuba Zero. Yeah.
Zeros. That's the new material for Cuba Zeros, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a new
And
7-page.
there's not a volume 3, right?
And then, it's either going to be volume 3 of that or it might be Time and Vine 2.
Oh, I like that one.
And other stuff. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, once you leave, Tom Akos asked me to take over.
Oh, cool.
Series. Just saying.
This is going to be an awkward time to tell you about my Billy Dogma story.
Oh! No, don't break them up, please.
The hard part will be taking my shirt off next year at the ring.
I can't even do that, man. Jesus Christ.
I mean, obviously, that was the greatest thing that First Comics gave us this year was my Ringo's speech after Mike Baron.
Oh,
The Rude interlude.
Steve Rude, sorry.
Steve Rude.
Yeah.
Which
The Rude
was
interlude. It's one of the greatest moments of 2023 forever.
Rude interlude. But I don't know if you're going to wrap this up, but there was something that I've been trying to get Mike Gold to do for years, because he was kind of like one of the engineers of First Comics, right?
Yeah.
Would be like, tell me today, if you were to pick and choose all the different artists and cartoonists and authors that you know, what would today's First Comics be? And he always kind of skirts that question because that's a hard question to answer, right?
Because everybody's trying to do it.
Well, because everyone's trying to do it, but I still want Mike Gold's answer. So I realized what I have to do. I have to break both his legs and his arms and put him in the hospital and make him feel near death and say to him, Mike,
it's simple. All you do is you take
First
him,
Comics be today.
take him to a barbecue restaurant, and you let him order, and then you hold the food until he answers.
Good to know. Good to know.
See, I think you knock him out, you put him in a hospital bed, you start talking to him like he's dying, and then when he finally gives it up, and you have Wolf Blitzer reading his manifesto,
Yes.
and you drop it, and you pull off the mask, and you say,
Yep.
"It's over when we say it's over."
That's
Oh,
right.
That's so Mission Impossible.
Mission
Tom.
Impossible.
Yes.
Mission Impossible. I love it. It all comes around.
So Ed, what are you looking forward to in comics? Like you keep a good pulse on what's coming on. There's a new there's a new series of Wrong Earth coming, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Ahoy guys are doing some good stuff. They joke that, their mantra is vertigo but funny. They're all,
That's a great line. I hadn't heard that line. That's a good line.
oh yeah. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that out loud or
I don't
whatever,
care.
but yeah.
That's true. That's true.
You said it. They didn't say it.
No, their stuff is great, and yeah, have a lot of fun with them, and reading a couple DC books, and all kinds of indie stuff. And yeah, I guess I'm not reading that many Marvel books right now. I feel bad about that, but
Shouldn't feel bad.
yeah,
You do enough.
yeah, don't yeah. What's skill? No, I'm excited, and yeah, doing more and more Kickstarters too, and that's such a fun way to get great books. So
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, you bet, man.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I have there's a stack of Kickstarters I haven't opened yet that they're here.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But also there's a couple of there's 3 movies that I'm looking forward to next year that I want to see. Big ones. There's Dune 2 is coming out in March, which is something that is going to be
Boring.
What about the Furiosa movie?
I have an allergic reaction to the lead actress. She's too wall-eyed and she's got
Who
a
is that?
skinny head. She looks nothing like Charlize Theron.
Okay.
And it looks
George Miller is directing it.
Yeah, I love him. And it looks so CGI'd. Like it was so practical the last one. I hope it's not as CGI this one.
Okay.
But it'll still probably be really good because I love him.
And has anybody here been invested in this Planet of the Apes stuff?
I haven't seen the last movie, but I really like the first 2.
There's a new one. There's a new one coming this year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I have not. I have
really
not
good
watched it.
reimagining
It's something that I continually want to go back and catch up on. I think I'm going to do that so that I can see this movie in.
Yeah, because the first 2 very much feel like a modern retelling of the original. Like,
yeah,
it's not the same story, but it's got the same chords. Like, it feels like the kind of thing Rod Serling would have written today. Which I know it's based on the Pierre Boulet book, but Rod Serling is the one who wrote the first one.
Okay, is there anything else anybody's got coming up? Looking forward to next in 2024?
Mission Impossible 8.
Good one.
Tony Fleece and Trish Forster's Feral.
That is definitely something we wanted.
Which will be the best cat comic of 2024.
And we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it at that. How about you, Ed? What do you got?
Yeah, specific projects. Geez, I don't know. I feel like I didn't do my homework on that. I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking forward to. Yeah, I don't know. I don't got a good one for you, Bob. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I got one.
Okay.
I got one because I don't really remember. I don't know what's coming up in 2024. But when I saw Godzilla and King Kong running side by side, I started crying.
Yeah,
I started crying.
You think so?
Okay. What the? That's like
have you seen the -1 yet?
I hear great things.
I need to see that.
I've heard nothing but excellent things about it.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, Pop Culture Squad recommends.
I'm in. And speaking of Planet of the Apes, if you've seen the trailer for Godzilla X King Kong, it looks like there's some Planet of the Apes kind of action happening in that Middle Earth, whatever situation. So I don't know. We might get a little Caesar.
That'd be interesting. I'm gonna throw my last thing that I'm looking forward to, and that is it is going to be out. Let's see if we can grab it real quick. So it is coming out. A new comic book, free comic book day will be the first introduction to the new volume of Gatchaman in comics, and it's going to be written by Colin Bunn. and it's going to be drawn by Chris Batista, and it's the start of something. I like some of the things that are happening in comics that are kind of throwbacks that service nostalgia, but also have a freshness to them. I think that what they're doing at Skybound, I think Skybound's doing it. It's an Image Books that they're doing with Transformers and
G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe. Did you read that G.I. Joe? Dino?
No.
Did you read Larry's G.I. Joe? It's great.
Isn't
And
it?
I have not read a G.I. Joe book in 35 years.
Yeah.
And it is good. I like that. It's not. It feels new, but it also feels like it's giving that and that kind of stuff. Like what we're hopefully going to get from Gatchaman. I think they're going to try and get in some new fans, but it's also going to, I've seen some of the stuff and I've talked to some of the people involved. I'm looking forward to it.
I never really read ROM that much as a kid, but I know there's a ROM omnibus coming out from the original Marvel series, and I gotta say, I'm kind of curious to read ROM.
Yeah,
sure.
So
there's also the practical side of me that's upset that I didn't buy all the DC Marvel trades when they came out, not knowing they would be around forever. So
yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
It's fun stuff, and I love this. There's a person that I communicate with on the internet. I've not met them in real life, but they are a much younger person, and they are a student of comics. And it was one of the highlights of the past couple of weeks was I was talking to them. They just for the first time got a hold of X-Men, the New Teen Titans and the X-Men crossover, and had never read it.
Simon
And they're what's that? They never read it.
Terry Austin.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
It's Walt Simonson, Terry Austin inks, Chris Claremont, and it's amazing. First of all, I love it. It's arguably you can argue that it's one of the best single comics ever.
Oh yeah.
But that person read it, and I'm like, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And they're like, I loved it, and that tells you that there are people who understand the medium who are younger, and that the medium, if people can understand how it's supposed to be translated, if we can continue to do that, comics, movies, storytelling is what we're all here about, is just going to keep going, and hopefully have a great 2024. Let's go around the table. Last words, because we're over time, but I don't care.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to a great year in comics, and excited for cons, excited to go into comic shops and some good Kickstarters and bring some new folks into the medium too.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited about 2024 as much as I can be, because there's that comic book part of me that always says it's going to be great. I'm just looking out for number one. And I know how that goes. So, with that in mind, there's a lot of cool stuff on the horizon. There's a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to, and to become cool coming out of the strike and coming out of pandemic stuff, and like seeing what stuff happens when those barriers are gone again.
Yeah.
I'm still learning this Kickstarter road, like this way of dealing with, this personal relationship with mailing my comic to your door, But also at the same time, I realize that takes me out of many different systems. It takes me out of best of, end of the year conversation. Not that I would be in that, but it absolutely removes me because I'm not within the systems of.
That's incorrect.
Yeah.
Really?
Like correct. As this Love and Capes in the time of COVID got a Ringo nomination. That was a Kickstarter book. But I had
that was a Kickstarter book at the time. Okay, well, that's good to know, because I'm a little worried about the fact that,
absolutely not. Kickstarter, independent comics, it doesn't matter that it has to be published in a comic book or through Diamond.
Oh, I don't mean that. I mean the fact that I only serve backers right now. I haven't done the retailer version of Kickstarter.
Okay.
I need to figure that out. And maybe I'll talk to you, Tom, about
sure, yeah.
entails.
I have feelings.
But that's the conversation. Not that I need to win awards, but the point is this exposure, or people will discover you more because of lists, or because you're in the store. You know, for that impulse buy. I don't have an impulse buy. I have an impulse Kickstarter buy.
Right.
I don't have an impulse buy in the store. I'm not sitting on the racks until somebody finds my comic. I need to have a relationship with retailers if I'm going to be a self-publisher. So I need to figure out how involved I need to get being on the business side, which is not my wheelhouse, you know? So, but I am excited, of course, by
I'm excited for you to figure it out.
Well, thank you. But I'm excited to, like, I'm probably in my next Substack or two. I'm probably going to write about zines and Etsy and Kickstarter, and how there's a lot of really interesting ecosystem that's evolving from the crowdfunded, you know, comics, or the ones that are not going through the channels that we're normally used to seeing, getting our comics from. And I'm not trying to bucket. I'm just trying to figure out how to make it work on both sides, you know? Yep. So we'll see, you know?
Sounds good. Everybody, thank you guys for doing this.
Sure.
Thank you all the watchers for being there, for supporting us through the year. We have a huge list of people that we're getting set up for next year, including probably everybody on this. We'll see you in the new year. And we're gonna call it a night. But thanks everybody. Have a great 2020 end of 2023 and a great start to 2024. And we'll see you then.
And Ed, say goodnight to Lacey if she's sticking around.
No, she's by you, Manhattan. I told her to jump on. I said you're
right.
Yeah,
okay.
I think she's at some party or something.
Good night, Sherry.
Thanks so much, Sherry.
Thanks for being around. All right, guys.
All right.
So long,
thanks.
folks. See ya.
Bye.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you nerd?